Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Soulful Saturdays with Saylor. Around here, we cut through the noise, ditch the fluff, and dive straight into what matters: spiritual wellness, radical self acceptance, and unapologetic soulful living. Each week, I'll bring you truth with a side of sass, reflections that wake you up, and reminders that you are glorious. So, whether you've got your journal, your coffee, or that wild, messy bun, you are exactly where you need to be. So, let me say something that might hit a nerve today. And if it does, good. That usually means we just bumped into truth. Because a whole lot of women right now are walking around telling themselves they're stuck. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. I'm trying to figure things out. I'm waiting for the right time. And beautiful soul, can I lovingly call that what it really is? Most of the time, you're not stuck. You're not confused. And you're definitely not lost. You're waiting for permission. Permission to speak up when something doesn't sit right in your spirit. Permission to say no without writing a 5-page explanation and then apologizing for having boundaries. Permission to change your mind. Permission to outgrow people. Permission to stop carrying things that were never yours to carry in the first place. And permission to be seen, to be heard, to be bold, to be soft, to be powerful, to be fully, unapologetically, beautifully you. Yeah, this one might sting a little. You keep waiting for someone to look at you and say, you're ready now. You're good enough now. You can take up space now. You can stop shrinking now. But what if I told you that permission may never come? Not from your family who got comfortable with the version of you that keeps the peace. Not from the friends who only know the watered down version of you. Not from your partner, not from your coworkers, and definitely not from the old version of yourself. You know the one who still believes she has to earn her worth, prove her value, overgive, over-explain, overperform, just to feel chosen. Yeah. Did that hit a nerve? Good. Because if your soul is screaming a little right now, that means you're not wasting time. That means you're in the right conversation. And today, my beautiful soul, we're done asking for permission to be who we already are. So now that we ripped off the Band-Aid, let's talk about what this actually looks like in real life. Because permission seeking doesn't always show up wearing a big flashy sign. Oh no, she's sneaky. She's polished. She's often dressed up looking responsible, loving, loyal, maybe even the good girl. And underneath, a lot of the time, it's fear. And the first place it loves to hide, people pleasing disguised as kindness. Let's start there. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about being kind, like kindness is beautiful, kindness is powerful, kindness changes lives, but people pleasing, that's different. People pleasing says, if I keep everybody happy, maybe nobody will leave me. If I say yes, maybe they'll still love me. If I keep the peace, maybe nobody will be upset with me. And before you know it, you're exhausted, resentful, emotionally drained, running on fumes, all because you've been handing out pieces of yourself like free samples at the grocery store. And somewhere in all that giving, you disappeared. That part. Then there's waiting until it's perfect. Yeah, let's talk about this one for a second. How many dreams have you been sitting on this shelf because you're waiting for the right time? The right body, the right confidence, the right money, the right circumstance, the right moment. Beautiful soul. If we are all waiting until life was perfect, nothing would ever get done. You know what perfection really is most of the time? Hmm. How about fear wearing lipstick? It looks pretty, sounds logical, but it still keeps you stuck. And let me lovingly tell you something. You do not need to have it all figured out to take the first step. You just need enough courage to move. And then needing validation before taking action. This one gets a lot of us. You have an idea, a calling, a gut feeling, something inside of you saying, do it. And instead of trusting yourself, what do? We pool the room, we ask 5 friends, we check social media, we over explain, we overthink, we look for somebody, anybody to tell us we're making the right choice. Hey, I get it. Validation feels safe. If you constantly need other people to confirm what your soul already knows, you'll stay disconnected from your own compass and your own wisdom. She's being, that wisdom, she's been trying to talk to you for a very long time. And finally, what about fear of judgment? Yeah, that's a big one. What will they think? And can I lovingly ask you something? Who is exactly is they? Because they have been running a whole lot of women's lives. They might talk, they might judge, they might not understand, they might think I've changed. Well, of course you've changed. That's what we call growth. And not everybody gets access to the new version of you. Some people only felt comfortable with the version of you that stayed quiet, stayed available, stayed small, and stayed easy to manage. But you were created to be manageable. You were created to be aligned. And that changes everything. So now we're going to call something out. Now that we've looked at the people pleasing, the overthinking, the waiting, and the fear of judgment, now comes the real question. What do we do with it? Because awareness is beautiful. But awareness without action, that's just another journal entry. And we're not just here to nod our heads and say, wow, that's me. We're here to change something. And if we're going to stop asking for permission to be yourself, you're going to need one word. Not confidence. Not perfection. Nope. Not everybody's approval. You ready? You're going to need boundaries. Now hold on. Before some of you clutch your pearls and start thinking, Cindy, I'm not good at boundaries. Or I don't want people thinking I'm mean. Or my personal favorite, I just don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Well, I'm going to say this lovingly. How long have you been hurting your own feelings, trying not to hurt everybody else's? That one usually gets everyone quiet. Because so many women, especially the women everyone depends on, the caregivers, the nurturers, the fixers, the ones who hold everybody together. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that boundaries were selfish, that saying no was rude, that choosing yourself meant you were difficult, that needing space meant you were cold, that protecting your peace meant that you were pushing people away. And I am here to tell you that's a lie. Boundaries are not walls. And let me say that again for the women in the back. Boundaries are not walls. Walls say stay out. Walls say nobody gets in. Nobody gets close. Walls say I've been hurt, so nobody gets access. Boundaries? Boundaries say I can care deeply without caring what isn't mine. Boundaries say, I love you, and this is where I end and you begin. Boundaries say, I can show up for you without abandoning myself. And my favorite, boundaries are anchors. They keep you grounded when other people's emotions try to pull you off course. They keep you rooted when guilt comes knocking. They keep you steady when somebody doesn't like your no. Because let's be honest, not everyone is going to clap when you start honoring yourself. Some people got real comfortable with the version of you that overgave, the version of you that always said yes, the version of you that answered every text immediately, fixed every crisis, showed up exhausted, and smiled while doing it. So when you start changing, don't be surprised if people notice. And don't be surprised if people push back. Why? Because your boundaries force people to adjust to the new you. And not everybody likes that. This discomfort does not mean you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's mean you're finally doing something right. And we could talk about something powerful. You do not have to become hard to become clear. Go ahead and write that down. You do not have to be hard to become clear. You can be soft. You can still say no. You can be compassionate and still protect your peace. You can love deeply and still choose yourself. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. That's emotional maturity. That's healing. Because the healed version of you doesn't over-explain. She doesn't beg to be understood. She doesn't shrink to make other people comfortable. She simply says, that doesn't work for me. I'm unavailable for that. I need time. She simply says, I love you, but no. And then she lets that be enough. No guilt, no 10-minute explanation, no rewriting the text 5 times, no asking your best friend, do you think that sounded mean? No, it's truth, alignment, peace. And let me tell you something. The moment you stop managing everybody else's comfort, you finally start coming home to yourself. And that is where the real blooming begins. And I want to talk to woman just for a moment right now. No masks, no polished answers, no I'm fine, just truth. Because if we're going to have this conversation, then let's really have it. Have you ever caught yourself saying yes when every part of your spirit was screaming no? I'm talking about that gut feeling, that tightness in your chest, that little voice inside saying, girl, you do not want to do this. And yet, you smiled, you nodded, you said, sure, no problem. I got it. That's okay. When inside, it wasn't okay. Have you ever smiled while silently building resentment? I know that one hits because resentment rarely shows up overnight. Resentment's sneaky. It gets built one yes at a time. One overextended favor, one ignored boundary, one swallowed truth, one moment where you chose somebody else's comfort over your own peace. And then one day, you find yourself irritated, exhausted, emotionally short, snapping at people who didn't even create the wound. And you wonder, what is wrong with me? Well, nothing's wrong with you, but something might be out of alignment. And sometimes what we've been calling kindness, if you've been honest, has really been fear. Fear of disappointing someone, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being judged, fear of being seen as difficult, fear of someone saying, you've changed. Well, you have changed. And thank God for that. Because if you're not doing the work, that didn't come out right. How about this? And thank God, because if you are doing the work, if you're healing, if you're becoming more aware, if you're finally listening to your soul instead of everybody else's explanations, then yes, you're going to change. And growth makes people uncomfortable, especially the people who benefited from the version of you that stayed quiet, the version of you that never pushed back, the version of you that always made herself available, the version of you that kept saying yes, even when it cost her peace. That part lands deep, doesn't it? Because nobody really talks about this. Sometimes people pleasing doesn't look weak. Sometimes it looks responsible. Sometimes it looks nurturing. Sometimes it looks dependable. Sometimes it looks like the woman who has it all together. Sometimes it looks like I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to keep the peace. I'm just trying to make sure everybody's okay. And on the outside, everybody thinks you're amazing, strong, reliable, selfless. But on the inside, you're tired. And maybe, if you're honest, a little resentful. Because here's the truth nobody says out loud. You can't keep pouring from a cup you that you keep handing away. At some point, you've got to ask yourself, at what cost? At what cost do you keep protecting everybody else's comfort while abandoning your own truth? And what cost do you keep showing up for everybody else while quietly disappearing from yourself? At what cost do you keep being the strong one while nobody notices you're carrying more than you were ever meant to carry? That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. And it's dressed up in pretty clothes. And if you're the woman everyone depends on, the helper, the fixer, the caregiver, the peacemaker, the one who remembers birthdays, checks in on everyone, sends the thoughtful text, carries the emotional weight, keeps the family connected, keeps the business moving, keeps smiling while her own needs sit on the back burner. Beautiful soul, this probably hits hard because people get used to your availability. Let me say that again. People get used to your availability. Not because they're always bad people, not because they're trying to hurt you, but because when you teach people that you'll always bend, they'll stop noticing how much bending costs you. And then the moment you start changing, the moment you start saying, actually, I can't do that. Or the moment you actually say, that doesn't work for me. I need some time. Or the moment you start saying, I'm unavailable. The moment you start saying no, suddenly people notice. And some people call it selfish. Some people will call it attitude. And some people will say, what's gotten into you? They might also say, you used to be easygoing. They also may say, you've changed. And you know what? Smile and say, you're right, I have. Because the old version of you was surviving. This version of you, she's healing. The old version of you kept the peace by betraying herself. This version of you, she keeps peace by honoring herself. Big difference. And can I tell you something beautiful? Soft boundaries change conversations. Not because you become louder, not because you become rude, not because you start fighting with everybody, but because your energy changes. Your words become cleaner. Your yes means yes. Your no means no. You stop over explaining. You stop apologizing for things that don't require an apology. You stop managing everybody else's emotions. And that changes relationships. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, people have no choice but to meet the real you. And some will rise with you. Some will respect it. Some will love the new version of you. And yes, some may fall away. Not everybody who loses access to you has lost because you did something wrong. Sometimes they just lost access to the version of you that had no boundaries. And hear me when I say this. You can stay connected without self-abandonment. You can love deeply without overgiving. You can support others without rescuing everyone. You can be compassionate without carrying everybody's emotional baggage like it's your full-time job. And you can say no without becoming the villain in your own story. That is what alignment looks like. And once you taste that kind of peace, well, you stop begging for approval because you finally remember home was never out there. It was always within. So here's what I've learned, my dear friends. Blooming requires boldness, not the loud kind, not the look at me kind, not the kind that needs to prove a point, win an argument, or make a grand exit. No, it's real boldness, real healing, real growth. A lot of times it's quieter than people expect. Sometimes boldness sounds soft. Sometimes boldness sounds like, that doesn't work for me. It will also sound like I need some time to think about that. It'll also sound like, I love you, but I see this differently. It'll also sound like I'm choosing something different right now. Oh, and my favorite, this is who I am, whether you understand it yet or not. Yeah. Now hear me. That's not ego talking. No, it's not rebellion, not attitude, it's alignment. And there's a big difference because ego wants to prove, ego wants to defend, ego wants everybody to understand, approve, clap, and validate. Alignment? Alignment's different. Alignment doesn't beg, alignment doesn't chase, and alignment does not over explain. Alignment simply knows. And when a woman starts living from that place, everything begins to change. Which brings me to something I think more women need to hear. Can we normalize soft boundaries? Seriously. Can we stop acting like boundaries have to come with slam doors, attitude, sharp tones, or dramatic exits? Because they don't. You don't have to become hard to be clear. You don't have to become hard to be clear. You don't have to fight with everybody. You don't have to write a paragraph text explaining your no. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to make everybody understand your healing. You can be loving and still clear. You can be compassionate and still say no. You can stay connected and still honor yourself. And beautiful soul, when you start doing that, something beautiful happens. Your relationships, they start feeling cleaner. Not perfect, not drama-free, but cleaner. Because people no longer have access to a version of you that says yes when she means no. They start meeting the real you, the honest you, the grounded you, the healed you. And you know what else starts happening? That resentment that you've been carrying, that irritation, that emotional exhaustion, that silent exhaustion from always being the one who gives, fixes, carries, explains, and overextends, it starts dissolving. Why? Because resentment often grows where boundaries are missing. And then, this may be one of the most beautiful things ever, your inner compass stays intact. You know that voice inside you? The one that you've been second guessing, the one that you've been talking over, the one that you've been drowning out with everybody else's opinions. She gets louder, stronger, clearer, and suddenly you stop asking, what will they think? And you start asking, what feels true to me? That's where your power comes back. Not from control, not from perfection, not from approval, but from finally trusting the woman within. And once that happens, there's no going back. So before we close out today, my beautiful soul, I want to leave you with something simple. But don't mistake simple for easy, because this one question, if you truly start living it can change your relationships, your conversations, your confidence, and honestly, your life. So this week, before you respond, before you say yes, when your spirit is whispering no, before you apologize for something that doesn't require an apology, before you explain yourself for the 10th time, before you shrink to make somebody else feel comfortable, and before you make yourself smaller just so somebody else doesn't feel challenged by your growth, pause. Just for a moment, pause and ask yourself, is this coming from alignment or approval? Not will they understand, not will they be upset, not will they still like me, not will they think I'm too much. No. Ask yourself, is this true for me? Does this honor who I'm becoming? Does this feel like peace or performance? Listen for your voice. Because, beautiful friend, there's a difference. There's a big difference. One's going to drain you, the other one's going to ground you. One keeps performing for love, and the other reminds you that you never had to earn it in the first place. And then ask yourself the question. Get quiet enough to hear your own answer. Not the voice of guilt, not the voice of fear, not the voice of old conditioning, not the voice of the woman who learned to survive by keeping everybody happy. No. Listen for your voice, your truth, your wisdom, your compass, because she knows. Oh, she knows. And maybe, just maybe, this week isn't about becoming someone new. Maybe it's about finally trusting the woman that you've been all along. And here's a little soul work for you. Catch yourself asking, what will they think? And replace it with, what do I think? And that, my friend, is our episode of Stop Asking for Permission to Be Yourself. Thanks for tuning in, beautiful soul. Take this week to listen to the whispers and remember your soul knows the way. And as you move through your week, carry this truth in your heart. You are worthy, you are radiant, and your presence matters. And never forget, stay soulful, stay sassy, stay you. I'll see you next Saturday, beautiful soul. Same time, same vibe, same glorious energy.